It's the thought that counts, right? Well, not if you're not getting what you want, not really. When I first came across setting intention, it sounded really interesting, and I really liked the way that it was presented in sort of this kind of new agey, kind of spiritual, sort of like manifesting kind of thing. And then when I got into NLP trainings, they would often talk about setting your intention for the day. And again, this seemed like a really interesting thing to do. I could set my intentions every single day, and then what? It was sort of like, okay, well, here's what I would like to have happen today. And so here's where I'm going to set my intent. And then there's that other thing that I want, and there's that other thing that I want. And it started to feel like I was, ordering food at a fast food restaurant. Well, go ahead and add the extra fries on with that. Why not? While you're setting your intentions, you might as well load the thing up with as much intention as you possibly can. But of course, that's not really what this means, or setting your intention, that's not really what it means. But I also think they don't explain it well enough in pretty much anything I've read or any videos that I've seen or any trainings that I've been in. They don't really explain it well enough to put it into actual use. Sort of like I could just, set my intent, and why not set bigger intents and mini intents? But at the end of the day, does any of these intentions really occur? So what's really better, setting intentions or setting goals? Well, the truth is they both have their pros and they both have their cons. The good news is you don't really have to choose between either or. You can do both. Now, before I dive more deeply into this, if you find yourself liking this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button right down here and click the bell so you'll be notified when I put new videos out, which tends to be every Wednesday and every Saturday. And if you're a bit impatient and you know that I always give away something for free in every one of my videos, you might want to check the description right here down below. You will see that there's a link, and I'll explain at the end of the video what that is exactly that you can get for free. That will take what I'm going to explain in this video, much, much deeper. So what really is the difference between goals and intentions? Well, goals are tangible, they're specific, they're measurable. In NLP terms, the word digital refers to when something either is or it isn't. It's either on or it is off. It's either black or it's white. There is no in between. And so a goal has no sort of spectrum. It's you either achieved it or you did not achieve it. And so we refer to that as digital. On the other hand, intentions are vague, they are intangible, and they are internally evaluated. In other words, they can't really be measured like goals can. A goal you can measure if you're getting closer to your goal or further away from your goal or not doing either. But when it comes to intentions, they are really internally evaluated, meaning you know it when you feel it. So it's very different than goals. Now, just like we can use digital to refer to goals, there's a word that we use to refer to something that is more a spectrum, not an either or, and that would be the word analog. So the best way to think of analog versus digital is like a light switch. It's either you flip the switch on, you flip the switch off. It's either on or it's off. Whereas a dimmer, where you actually have control over the exact, amount of how dark or how dim it is, so it's a range. That dimmer would be something that's analog. So you either achieve the goal or you don't. But when it comes to fulfilling an intention, it's either you feel like you can feel it a little bit or you can feel it a lot. It's something that's really a spectrum. It's analog. And when I use the word intention, another word that is a synonym for an intention is value. And if you've watched a lot of my videos, you have heard me use the term value and values quite a bit. So when I say intention, it's really synonymous with value. So which one's going to work better for you? Focusing on your intentions or focusing on your goals? Well, it really depends on the person. I found that people typically have their own style of how they like to go about something. Now, for me, I'm much more about focusing on the value and intention. I used to set goals a lot and I would not achieve them, or sometimes I would achieve the intention, but because my goal was so specific and I didn't achieve the exact goal, but I achieved the fulfillment of my intention, I couldn't enjoy it because it didn't show up in the exact packaging that I had imagined that it would show up in. So for me, I choose to set fewer goals. I do set goals, but I set fewer goals and I put most of my attention on my intentions, meaning I focus a lot on the values that I want to fulfill. Now, some people are just the opposite. They love to come up with a plan and come up with a specific goal. So they love to measure. You people who are into math and love to measure, you have a tendency to be able to set goals and achieve them with precision. And people like me, I'm better off holding the goals sort of loosely and just really focusing more on the intention. But here's the thing with goals. At some point, at some level, you really need to focus on the intention, or rather the value of what it is that you want from achieving the goal. Because we think achievement of the goal itself is the reward, and it is not. Everything that you do, every action you take, every behavior you engage in is an attempt to fulfill a value or to fulfill an intention. You have an intention with everything that you do. Sometimes it may not feel that way because the intention is unconscious. But trust me, everything that you do, every thought that you think has an intention. So to ignore intention completely and just set goals, it's rather rigid, it's rather cold, and it often comes off as very shallow. And when you do achieve the goal, it's usually lacking in fulfillment. The other thing that can happen is you're going after the wrong goal. You go and achieve a goal and it's not fulfilling at all, and you realize, I didn't really want this thing anyway. And sometimes that happens even before the achievement of a goal, after you've put a lot of effort and invested a lot of time and energy into something, and you start to go, I just don't think that I'm not enjoying this. I'm not enjoying the process. And when I finally achieve the goal, I don't think I'm going to feel fulfilled when I achieve the goal. And you kind of question, why am I doing this? And a lot of us will keep going just because we've invested so much into it. We hate to quit. And then, of course, we get there and it's like, yeah, it's just kind of empty. So to ignore intention and values and only set goals simply because you're good at it and you can make them work, you can achieve them, you're missing the larger chunk. Because really everything that you're trying to do, whether it's achieving a goal or just doing something very, very simple, like just your simple basic actions and behaviors, all of them are trying to fulfill an intention, to fulfill a value. So if you combine that with setting goals, it's very motivating. The other thing that can happen is, as you're setting the goal and you're checking in with your intention and the values, and what is the value or the values that you feel like you're going to fulfill by achieving the goal, and you really hash that out, you might realize that this goal is not appropriate for what it is you're trying to fulfill. And so that's great. Like when you can do that, you realize, wow, I can save myself a lot of time and energy by not going after that goal, because I took the time to check in with my intention, I know that this is not going to do it for me. So then it allows you to set a different goal that will align to your intentions and that will fulfill them. And that's so much more important to do, because that's what we're all trying to do. Now, some people get caught up in the idea of impressing people by achieving goals. And again, this is where we disconnect from our intentions. This is where we lose track of our intentions and our values, because you might achieve something pretty amazing. It took you a lot of time and effort. There's not much personal fulfillment, but you're banking on it being impressive to other people. And then maybe it doesn't impress people.Maybe those people don't even take the time to acknowledge it, and you don't have control over what other people think. So you went chasing a goal because you thought you were looking for some sort of external validation, and it didn't work. And then even if they had given you that validation, still it would have been very empty. It wouldn't have lasted very long. And so we don't want to chase goals looking for external validation. And that's why intention is really important. It's like, well, what really do I want out of this? And do I have control over that? And, what if nobody is around to acknowledge it? Is this still very fulfilling? Does this fulfill my intentions? And that's something that you really want to put to your goals, because if you're not, and you're going and chasing goals and you're achieving them and they're not fulfilling, that's pretty much why. That'll do it. When you shift your attention to values and intentions, there are a lot more possibilities of fulfilling those intentions rather than just one goal. There are a lot more options to make that happen. And this is another reason why I like to put more of my attention on the intentions and the values that I'm trying to fulfill. And I hold the goal loosely, and I'm ready to throw that goal out at any time, because the goal to me is rather rigid. It's only one way to go after the fulfillment of your values. And I would rather there be many options, and I would rather be more flexible and more adjustable. But for a lot of people, this doesn't work so well. They really need to ground what it is that they want in a set measurable goal. So you really got to find what works best for you, but it's really important to acknowledge those intentions and the values. And then if you're one of those people kind of like me, who you really like to focus on the values and the intentions, this has a con to it as well. And that is, we tend to be the dreamers, the people who get really caught up in our fantasies and don't ever really bring it into reality. It's very seductive to get really focused on your values and your intentions so much that you'd rather sort of play in that fantasy land in your mind without actually engaging in real life and bringing that into real life. And so that requires some planning, that requires taking actions. And you can't just go completely off of intention, especially if this is if it's a big endeavor. So you do need to plan some, and you do need to set a target of what it is that you're aiming at. Now you can always change it, adjust it. You know, you're putting your focus on your intentions and your values. That makes it a lot easier to do that. You want to keep out of the rigidity of a goal, but you do have to actually do something to really fulfill those intentions and really fulfill those values. So if you're more on the value side, be careful that that all you're doing is focusing on your intention and not actually actively planning and aiming at something and engaging in actions that will fulfill those values for you. So ultimately, you want to do both. They are very powerful when you combine them together. So make sure that not only are you setting goals, but you are also eliciting the intentions and are eliciting the values from what having that goal will do for you, because that's really what you're wanting to fulfill. There's nothing that has inherent value. You're always going after the states that are fulfilling states. So you want to make sure that that goal is going to do that for you. This also connects you with your motivation to achieve that goal. So it feels fulfilling and motivating every step of the way. And if you're focusing on intentions and values a lot, and you're a little wary of setting goals simply because you haven't achieved a lot of them, even though you may have gotten something close to it and you fulfilled the values, just keep in mind, it does take some planning, it does take some aiming, and it might not be that important to you if you exactly cross that particular threshold. And that's kind of how I am. Crossing the threshold isn't so important as am I fulfilling my values and my intentions, but I need to have a sense of a target, a plan, something to aim at. That helps a lot too. So combining these two becomes very, very powerful. And just be cognizant of your style. Which way do you do this best? And make sure that you set this up so that it works with your style of fulfillment, so that you're not putting your attention too much in one place. For me, putting my attention too much on goals will get very rigid and cold. So that doesn't work very well for me. I need to stay in intention and my values. But for some of you who are really into numbers and measurements like that, it might really excite you to, as one of my friends told me, to count the beans. He says, I'm a bean counter. I remember when he said that, and it was like, oh, okay, he's one of those guys. He really likes the very particular measured goals. And if that's you, then make sure that you're giving yourself that opportunity, and with keeping an eye on, is this fulfilling you? Is this meeting up? Is this aligning to your intentions and your values? So in other words, don't just do one without the other. Make sure you're combining this. And one of the things that combines this, an exercise and a process, is an NLP process called a well-formed outcome. Not only does it combine goal setting and a good way to set goals with an understanding of your intentions and your values by eliciting those intentions and values, there's also other pieces to the well-formed outcome. And if you do a well-formed outcome really well, it is a guarantee almost of you achieving what it is that you want, because it's a living, breathing thing, and it's something that you come back to and you make adjustments and you work at it piece by piece by giving the right amount of measurement and the right amount of fulfillment. And it's one of those things that you learn early on in your first NLP training, your practitioner training. But I see most people either don't fully understand it or they don't really take the time to utilize it. So in the description below, you will find that link. And in that link, you click that link, you will get a free PDF on how to do a well-formed outcome. So if you listen to this video or watch this video and you go about doing that exercise, this will be extremely, extremely helpful in getting you so much closer to what it is that you want to achieve, whether that is a specific goal or it's about just having greater fulfillment. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, and I don't know why you wouldn't have, hit that subscribe button and the bell so you'll be notified when I put new videos out. And last but not least, if you can think of a friend or a family member who would benefit from watching this video, make sure you share it with them. Take care.